Hi, my name is Phil and I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the impact of particularly Boris Johnson's approach to Brexit, which, far from making the UK's main financial centre more competitive, which is his aim, is actually driving business away and will continue to do so. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So from Boris Johnson's point of view, one of the great prizes on offer with Brexit is deregulation of the City of London. This is how the thinking all too often goes for the far right of politics. So you remove regulations. Regulations are bad and make you less competitive. Being more competitive means that you undercut your competitors. You get more business, you make more money. Simple, n'est-ce pas? But there's a counter view to all this. One tranche of those regulations is going to cover worker rights. Now, if you remove worker rights, then you don't have to put up with their nonsense. You get more work out of them. But this is a fallacy. Productivity is not about how many hours you can get out of how many people. Happy workers are more productive workers. Tired, downtrodden workers are the least productive. They don't do anything out of goodwill and tend to work quite slowly because they're not really in it. And besides, when it comes to the sorts of workers you're talking about for the main financial centres in Europe, it's less of an employer's market than perhaps other industries. For example, if you've got pretty poor conditions or pay working in London and Frankfurt says, oh, we're willing to offer you twice as much and it's much nicer over here, then you think, oh, okay, I'll just get my passport. Of course, it may be blue passport by then, but it'll still work. Now, since the Brexit referendum, other EU countries have been strengthening their financial centres and attracting operators from the UK to come over. And Boris Johnson has a choice. He can either play by EU rules, in which case he can't abandon all those regulations, or he doesn't, in which case he also doesn't get a deal. And no deal means that the EU markets are going to be largely closed to the UK financial centre, certainly going to become very expensive to access. And the EU are a huge customer for London. Lose them and it's game over. Financial services, mostly concentrated in London, account for 7% of the entire country's GDP. It employs about 250,000 workers, significantly ahead of Paris's 180,000, but France is getting ready to take over as the main centre in Europe. It knows the UK is headed towards no deal at the end of the year, unless Boris Johnson makes a spectacular U-turn. This would leave them poised to pick up a lot of business from London. Germany, the Netherlands and Ireland would all benefit too, of course, but France's capacity seems to be beating them all at the moment. Already up to 100 companies that used to be based in London have already moved to France. That brought with it 4,000 extra jobs. There's been roughly, I think, another 150 have moved to other centres, Dublin, Frankfurt and so on. And that was all based on not knowing if the UK was going to get a decent deal with the EU or not. They weren't sure, so they moved just in case. Now, when it becomes undeniable, the leaking of financial services jobs will become, well, less a leak and more of an avalanche. One of the big ratings agencies, S&P, said that there was a clear contradiction between the interests of the UK in not fracturing financial markets and its stated desire to be able to freely negotiate trade agreements with third countries. They said that the UK will find it more expensive to trade with the EU for London's financial sector if it maintains that line that Boris Johnson is going down. And as for pulling customers from elsewhere, forget it. I mean, where is there in the world with enough money to make up for the loss of the EU as a customer? The United States has its own financial centre and a government who treats those who don't use US-based companies quite harshly. Japan, I mean, doesn't have enough, but even if we got more from it, why would we? It has a free trade deal with the EU. They will actually be moving from London to Paris or Frankfurt or elsewhere in the EU. Seriously, where in the world is the money to compensate? You know, the only untapped market so far is Antarctica. I'm not entirely sure the penguins have got that much. So the only new customers that we'll be getting to make up for the loss of all the old ones, or the current ones, will be of the shady variety, who want their financial affairs kept quiet. All very good for the Conservatives, who will gratefully accept their bribes. Sorry, donations. But that's not the sort of money that ever finds its way into the British economy, so it's not going to do us any good, not even the people of London. So anyway, I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then also please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.